Welcome inside this week's edition of One Sports. This week we'll cover the MLB,
the NBA playoffs,
and college basketball.
And it all starts right now. Welcome inside another edition of One Sports. Let's get things started off with the quick hitters. So, the Masters tournament, one of the best tournaments in golf, one of the four majors. Tiger Woods has returned to the Masters, announced he is going to participate here on the first Thursday. Shoots 1 under par. I mean, you got to think that's pretty good for a guy who broke his leg.
I mean, he almost lost his leg.
Yes.
He almost lost his leg, goes 1 under, and I think right now he's tied for 11th. I mean, that's not half bad.
And you also got to remember, he's in his 40s. And so, I mean, he's not exactly the sprightliest guy out there. But, I mean, Webb Simpson's near the top.
Dustin Johnson's
near the top.
It's Tiger Woods, man. It's Tiger Woods.
Sung J M's the leader at 5 under par. Cameron Smith, and this is, again, just through Thursday, the leader at 5 under par. Should be a very interesting last 3 days of the Masters down at Augusta. But now, again, since last time we were on World Cup, the drawing has happened. 29 official teams so far. We still have some play-ins to go. What groups are you looking at?
Absolutely crazy. And look, this is the first time that we're going to see a World Cup in this region too, and this is absolutely incredible. But let's take a look at some of the toughest groups. I mean, the toughest group to me, it's got to be Group B or Group C. I mean, I know some of those lower down towards the bottom are pretty spicy, but look, England, Iran, USA, and then the winner of Wales, Ukraine, and Scotland, that's pretty spicy. I mean, England versus USA in Qatar in the desert. Give me a movie about that, man. Give me a movie. I need the Netflix special. But then, I mean, you look down at Group C, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Poland, Mexico. That's not a bad draw. But let's face it, the easiest group always goes to the home squad. Qatar, Senegal, Switzerland, or excuse me, the Netherlands and Ecuador. And that's kind of a hometown draw, if you want to call it that. So, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, you got to give it to Group A, I think, for the easiest. I mean, Senegal had to beat Egypt on penalties just to get to the World Cup. The Netherlands missed the last World Cup and the 2016 Euros. They were ousted by Iceland. Ecuador makes it. They're one of the lower-tier South American clubs. And, of course, Qatar, the home nation. And we had the scandal last World Cup with Russia. We had the whole warm ballers scandal. So, again, the home team kind of getting a favorable draw, but, I mean, Qatar, not exactly a world soccer power. But, again, can we talk about Group B and about what kind of a political movie that would be? Because you could potentially get, listen to this, England, the USA, Iran, and Ukraine. I mean, that is a melting pot of political turmoil for the record books.
And, I mean, let's face it, there will be a Netflix special about this if this comes to fruition. I mean, obviously, it's the Wales-Ukraine group, but, like, there could be a movie about this. There could be a Netflix special about this, and this could be, like, the next Last Dance, really.
But in terms of toughest groups, though, I got to disagree with you, though, because I'm going to go either Group E or Group H. So for Group E, you have two of the biggest world powers right now in Germany, who's looking for revenge of the 2018 World Cup because they didn't even qualify for the round of 16 after winning the World Cup in 2014. You have Spain, who's a world power. Then you have Japan, who's always kind of sneaky good. And then you have the winner of New Zealand and Costa Rica. Costa Rica has always put on a pretty good show with the World Cup. And the Group H is, I think, the group of death. And ironically, the last time the USA was in the World Cup, there's two teams from that group the USA was in this group, Portugal and Ghana. And then you have Uruguay and South Korea. They all have individual stars on their teams. Sung Heung-min for South Korea is great for Tottenham. Cristiano Ronaldo with Portugal. Edinson Cavani for Uruguay. Luis Suarez as well. Just top quality attackers in that group. But you have some somber news for us from the hardwood.
It should be a good one, but this one hits pretty close to home. Elon men's basketball head coach Mike Schrage announced his resignation recently. He is now going back to Duke, where he was the director of basketball operations for a number of years. He's joining John Shire's staff at Duke, and he's the special assistant to the head coach, which I love Mike Schrage, but that sounds an awful lot like a Dwight Schrute title. So I'm not quite sure what they're doing there. But of course, we wish Coach Strage well. He's, he has strong family ties to that program. But I mean, with that being said, Elon now has to turn the page and look for somebody new. Gray, I'm looking at Frank Haith, somebody you know pretty near and dear, to come possibly be a candidate to lead this program. He was at Tulsa. He's an Elon grad. He's 343 and 237 as a head man. He was the National Coach of the Year in 2012. But they lost to Norfolk State that year as a 2 seed. So I mean, he has good pedigree, but not great pedigree. But I don't know. What's your call?
I definitely think Frank Haith is an option because, again, he's an Elon graduate, so I think he ties into the program really well. He's not at Tulsa anymore, and he's looking for some kind of employment. I think it would be a great fit for him to come back personally and represent his alma mater. But I saw something on Twitter, and if Matt Doherty is the coach of the Elon Phoenix. I saw that.
No. And I ironically enough, I think that he was in the rumor mill before Strage was hired in that coaching cycle following Matt Matheny. And I don't know what to think. I mean, look, Matt Doherty is a Carolina guy. We have mixed feelings about Matt. He's a Carolina kid. We love him. I mean, he's 170 and 180, but he's only been to the NCAA tournament once. I mean, he's coached a number of good teams, but it's Matt Doherty.
He was at Carolina for 3 years and did nothing.
I mean, he made it to the NCAA tournaments with a squad that wasn't his. I mean, he coached a number of pretty good teams after that, but it's Matt Doherty. I don't know if I can handle it.
He's the redheaded middle child. It's what he is, because he went from Dean Smith to Matt Doherty to Roy Williams. I mean, and then there's that 3 years in between where it's Matt Doherty.
And then Roy, of course, they were thinking about Roy in the first cycle, and of course he turned him down to stay at Kansas. Could you imagine if he'd have been in Carolina for 3 more years? But on a lighter note, I do have one final prospect, and that is Gardner-Webb head coach Tim Kraft. He doesn't really have the Elon connection, but he has made wonders with that Gardner-Webb athletic budget. You got to figure that Elon potentially could give him a raise. You got to figure the Colonial Athletic Association has bigger draw than the Big South.
So kind of like a la Pat Kelsey, what he did.
Right. Pat Kelsey from Winthrop to COC, and I mean I know you know Pat pretty well, but I think Tim Kraft, if that's his goal, I think Elon has the facilities that could potentially be a dark horse candidate.
He did lead Gardner-Webb to the NCAA tournament. They did lose to Virginia. This is back when that was the Virginia redemption year back in 2019. And so, I mean, he put up a good performance. He's made the NCAA tournament and has that pedigree. But also, from a lighter note, now we go to a much more disgusting note. We're going to have, because Coach K and Duke lost and he's no longer their head coach, who is your Mount Rushmore of most hated teams or teams that you hate or love to see lose?
Sorry, Coach Strage, I love you. I really do from the bottom of my heart, but it's a 4-letter word and it rhymes with puke.
Yep.
Enough said.
So 4 spots on this list. One's a D, U, K, and E.
You can't play it down. It's Duke. I mean, Kentucky also. I'm not the biggest fan of Calipari. I mean, I think he's often been equated to kind of the used car salesman of college basketball because he's all recruiting and no coaching.
I'll give you that.
But like 0 X's and O's. But and he slicks his hair back the same way. So
hey, don't hate on the slick back hair.
I don't know what he's doing there, but I don't know. I mean, it's a 4-letter word. It rhymes with vomit. The vomit comet. And look, Coach Strage, I love you, but listen, now we're mortal enemies. We have to be. I'll always have a special place in my heart for you, but we have to be mortal enemies now. I don't know what else I can tell you.
Hey, he's part of the brotherhood now. But also, I have the 3 most stereotypical ones on my list. The Dallas Cowboys, who I hate with all of my being. The New York Yankees, who I also hate with all of my being. And growing up in North Carolina, I despise Duke. J.J. Redick single-handedly ruined my childhood. I want to get rid of Kyle Singler and John Shire every time I see them. They disgust me.
I want, and let's just face it, Grayson Allen.
Oh, that's another good one.
Grayson Allen, Christian Laettner.
Oh, another good one.
I mean, they just have a pedigree of just players with just disgusting reputations. And it's not that they're all bad basketball players. It's just the style of play. I mean, look, we get it. You're trying to be gritty. You're trying to, but the Grayson Allen stuff. That just can't happen. That's cold, man. You can't substitute your lack of a jump shot with a kicked leg. You can't do it. You can't do that, man. And he's in the league.
Colby Cook, always a pleasure with you on the Quick Hitters. We'll be right back where you are going to lead the MLB block with our main man, Tobias Coker.
MLB opening day 2022 is upon us, and I'm here with Tobias Coker. Tobias, let's talk some opening day. The Atlanta Braves have capped off a beautiful World Series run in 2021 without Ronald Acuna Jr., but it's time to turn around the season for another 162. The CBA got signed, so we're ready to roll. What's your National League prediction for the division winners this year?
So in the East, I have the Braves repeating. They're just so much better than every other team. The Mets, I mean, DeGrom's already out for 2 months. Scherzer's probably going to get hurt, and after that, they have nothing. The Phillies are not good. The Nationals are horrific, and everyone else is just not good in the division. In the Central, I have the Brewers. I really like their pitching staff. The big question mark for them is going to be, can they hit? I'd like to see them make a move for a hitter at the deadline. And then out west, the big bad Dodgers, they got Freddie Freeman. They're just so good and so much depth, and the high-end superstars. They're going to roll to an easy division.
Oh, Frederick. But on the other end, for me, I've, of course, got the Atlanta Braves because, let's face it, we love to argue on this show, but Atlanta's going to rickroll the East. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Freddie Freeman may be gone. Matt Olson, though, great pickup. And, of course, Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back. So it should be a good one. Now, here's where I'm going to argue with you, though. St. Louis, man. Milwaukee always chokes.
Yeah.
They always choke. How do you have Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Christian Yelich on the same team, and you always choke?
They find a way every year. They always screw it up.
So I gotta go with the Redbirds, St. Louis.
Fair.
I mean, look, St. Louis is arguably, average in pretty much every category. They don't really have any superstars. They have some good starting pitching. They have good back end of the rotation. They have, Miles Michaelis on that rotation up front. But let's face it, they're not really great, but somehow team chemistry just propels them every year. And then, like I said, I got to go with you on the Dodgers. I'm not the biggest fan of the Dodgers. I do think, though, that the National League West is the strongest division in baseball right now.
Okay.
And so they're going to have some challengers, but, let's face it, you stack that, that's like, that's like some Monster Jam lineup stuff.
Yeah.
But if they implode like this year's Lakers, it'll be a beautiful thing to see.
I just can't wait for the inevitable big game, Game 6 NLCS, 9th inning. Kenley Jansen, pitching for the Braves, has an at-bat against Freddie Freeman for the Dodgers. I mean, who would have thought that a year ago?
And maybe Craig Kimbrell, who knows? Craig Kimbrell might come in for the Nats. But on the other end, the American League, after having a couple of down years, is looking stacked. Who you got for the American League side?
So in the East, I have the Blue Jays. All the young talent, they're so good. They're stacked. They have a farm system that they can trade from if they need to. I think they're going to steamroll through the East. The East is going to be good. I think the Blue Jays are just going to roll.
I got to say, I think Toronto, you're right on the money. Listen, they went ahead and got a gaggle of starting pitching. They went ahead and got Gausman. They went ahead and got Matt Chapman. He's going to absolutely feast up in Toronto. Yankees fans are going to cry. But let's face it. What have you done since 2009?
It's true.
And then, of course, the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the White Sox in the Central. What about you?
So I have the White Sox, but don't be surprised when the Twins make a run. They signed Correa, which shocked the whole world. They just acquired Chris Paddock. Maybe he's going to be somewhat decent in Minnesota. He was pretty awful in San Diego, but young pitcher. He's still maybe got some upside. And I think they just have a really good lineup, but they have no pitching whatsoever in Minnesota.
And taking a look at the National League West, it's kind of up in the air. The Oakland Athletics, did kind of make a run the last couple years, but let's face it, they traded away their franchise cornerstones.
Yeah.
So the AL West is wide open. Who you got for the West?
So I have the Mariners. They have so much young talent, and I wanted them to go get a really big bat this offseason, which they didn't do, but they instead went and got a really big arm in Robbie Ray, which I really like. So they're going to be good. But, don't count out the Astros. Their player development has been fantastic. Their new shortstop, Jeremy Pena, he's going to be good. Not as good as Correa, but still good. And then the Angels, I mean, they're not going to be good, but Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout are fun to watch. So
Shohei, Mike Trout, I mean, it's just glorious. And let's not forget our boy George Kirby, just tearing it up in Double-A. George Kirby, mark it. Well, if he doesn't make it by August, he's a September call-up this year. Mark it. George Kirby. So let's take a look now, just taking a quick transition. Let's go some underrated teams. Who's your underrated team of the year that you think is really going to blossom and be, somewhat of a surprise to everybody?
I have the Seattle Mariners as my underrated team, right? In the outfield, they have Julio Rodriguez, who's one of the top prospects in baseball, Kyle Lewis coming back from knee surgery, Mitch Haniger, and Jared Kelenic, one of the most underrated outfields in baseball. And then you mentioned their George Kirby, the Elon grad in the pipeline. They also have Emerson Hancock coming up to pitch for them. They just have a lot of good depth, right? Their high-end talent isn't quite there yet, but they don't really have holes. They're not really bad anywhere.
I mean, I agree with you, but I got to say, that San Diego rotation is looking mighty filthy. I mean, you got Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Sean Manaea, Nick Martinez, Blake Snell, Mackenzie Gore, Mike Clevenger's going to come back eventually. I mean, that is just nasty. Now, offensively, let's face it, they've had some struggles. And Fernando Tatis has not exactly lived up to the mega contract. But that rotation, that's filthy.
Yeah, no, the rotation's good, but I just think they need another bat and that albatross of an Eric Hosmer contract. They got to figure out something to do with that. They got to get rid of that somehow.
And I mean, taking a look at the, your overrated category, pretty sure I know who you're going to pick. And Matt Laguza, if you're watching from London, yes, we're looking at you.
So sorry, Guza, but I have the Mets as an overrated team. DeGrom's hurt for 2 months. Scherzer, who they gave $43 million a year to. Last year in the playoffs, he flamed out because he had a dead arm. That's not good if you're a pitcher. They signed Starling Marte and Mark Canha, who are really good at getting on base, but like most of their on-base skills comes from getting hit by pitches, which is, as I'm sure you can assume, very dangerous. And they're just the Mets. Something's going to go wrong. Someone's going to get suspended. Someone's going to get arrested. They're just the Mets.
Mets going to Met, baby. Steve Cohen is trying to run the ship like Jeannie Buss and the Lakers.
Right.
They're running it straight in the ground. Yeah. But I got to go on the other coast. I'm going to say an answer that might shock baseball fans everywhere. I think the Los Angeles Dodgers have a chance of bowing out in the NLDS.
Really?
I mean, this looks to me like this Lakers team this year. You stack it with all-star talent, and the locker room is just going to be a mess. It's just going to be a mess. You can't build a team without team chemistry. And the Dodgers are just like, let's see how many giant payroll contracts we can stack on top of each other. It's going to be a mess. I just don't. I don't think they have the chemistry to get it done. It's just going to be like a bunch of hotheads screaming at each other.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing, people are saying that the Dodgers lineup is like the craziest lineup of all time. If you look at hitting stats only, Freddie Freeman and Corey Seager are pretty equal, and Corey Seager left, and they brought Freddie Freeman in. So it's pretty much going to be the same lineup as last year, which lost to the Braves in the NLCS.
Imagine that.
Crazy.
But, I mean, taking a look down the line, we mentioned some of these just really good young talent that's coming up. We mentioned George Kirby. But who's your Rookie of the Year?
My Rookie of the Year, I have Julio Rodriguez in the American League. Then I have C.J. Abrams. He just made the Padres opening day roster. Tatis got hurt. I think he's going to play a lot. I think their shortstop, Ha-Seong Kim, is not that good, so he's going to play a lot.
And I mean, Spencer Torkelson, I've got Spencer. He's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Rookie for the Tigers. And then Hunter Green. O'Neal Cruz is going to have a really good season as well if he makes it up for the Pirates. He's sitting at AAA right now, but he might make it up. We shall see. But before we wrap it up, give me your MVP picks for the upcoming year.
So I think Mike Trout's been hearing everyone talking about not him. And I think he's just going to casually put up another 9-win season, be the best player in baseball, and he's going to cruise to an MVP. Then in the National League, I have the best player in baseball, when he's healthy, Ronald Acuna Jr. He's just going to rake. He's amazing.
I got to say, I love your Ronnie pick.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. But I'm going with the Angels teammate. Give me Shohei Ohtani 2 years in a row.
Wow.
You can't do that. The man is Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. But that'll do it for the predictions of the Diamond. Opening day kicking off as we speak. So should be a good season. Tobias,
sure.
thanks for joining.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Tobias Coker going from the diamond now to the hardwood, covering NBA playoffs, pulling double duty on today's episode. So Tobias, NBA playoffs, who you got coming out of the Western Conference?
So the West, there's a lot of good teams. The Suns are very good. The Grizzlies are very good. The Nuggets are even better, right?
Ooh.
As long as Michael Malone starts Bones Hyland over Monte Morris, I dapped up Bones Hyland in high school, so we're pretty much best friends at this point. And I think Jokic, he's the best player in basketball, and it's not close. Bones leading the bench unit there. Monte Morris, I really like him, sharpshooter. He's turned the ball over like 4 times in his life. I mean, he's fantastic with that. But, start Bones. He's electric. He's going to drop 50 on you like he did on us in high school, and here we go. How about you, Gray?
Bones Hyland is going to make the difference because he dapped you up in high school.
Gray. I'm going to make the difference because I dapped up Bones Hyland in high school, okay?
You make the difference for the Denver Nuggets. Not the fact that they don't have Jamal Murray or they haven't had him for the entire season, won't be there for the playoffs or anything like that.
Won't be there for the
You
future.
single-handedly are going to be responsible for Mike. Mike Malone should just hire you on the coaching staff.
I've been saying that for years. I'm going to write him a letter of application now. Why not?
I mean, why not? But also, I think we all pretty much know who's going to be the favorite in the Western Conference. It is the Phoenix Suns. They are going to dominate the Western Conference as they've done the entire season.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the game a few nights ago against the LA Clippers. They didn't have Ayton. They didn't have Devin Booker. And they didn't have Chris Paul. And they came back from a 30-point deficit and lost the game by 4. And so, I mean,
so they lost.
Yes, they lost.
Okay.
But they've only lost, I think, 15 games this season. They've won 63 games, a franchise record. Devin Booker, who should be in the MVP conversation, again, 80% winning percentage for a team and leading your team in scoring. That has been an MVP. If you've had those credentials, that has been the MVP since going back to, I think, Michael Jordan. Okay. Every player who's met those credentials has gotten the MVP award. But Devin Booker gets no love. But, that's okay. I'm pretty sure an NBA championship would suffice for Devin Booker. But I just think they have the depth. They traded for Torrey Craig at the deadline. He was a good veteran piece they got back. Chris Paul, the point god himself. Devin Booker. Mikal Bridges is coming into his own as well. And DeAndre Ayton. Pay DeAndre Ayton. I mean, he's proven himself this year. He's up to scoring. His rebounding has always been fantastic. I say pay DeAndre Ayton. Phoenix Suns are going to get it done. But also, with my predictions on this show, I mean, honestly, that means they probably won't win now, so I'm just going to take that back. But who do you got coming out of the Eastern Conference? Because, I mean, it's so tight in that top 4 right now in the East. Who do you have coming out?
So I think in the top 4, it's tight with a lot of good but not great teams. But I think the Celtics and the Bucks are going to play in the Eastern Conference Finals.
That I can get behind.
I think the Celtics, the only team in the Eastern Conference in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, they're going to get to the finals where Nikola Jokic and Bones Hyland are just going to obliterate them because they're not. The Celtics, I don't think they're that good. I think Ime Udoka, best coach, one of the better coaches in the league.
Great hire.
But they just don't have. They need another scorer, in my mind.
In my opinion, in order to win an NBA title, you need a big 3. And that's exactly what happened last year with the Milwaukee Bucks, who I'm taking again to make it to the finals this year. I think it's going to be a finals rematch between Suns and Bucks. I don't see the Heat. I just don't know how they're first in the East at this point at all. I mean they're a tough, gritty team, but I could see them losing in the second round to a team, whoever ends up in that 4th seed, whether it's Celtics or Sixers, I could see them beating the 1-seeded Heat. But again, I think you need 3 scorers who can all score at different levels. Now again, Giannis is a Greek freak, literally.
Right, doesn't really count.
So I think. So he's just going to dominate, but I think Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are great pieces for them. They can get to the basket anytime they want, and they defend. The playoffs really gets down to defending because we all know that defense really doesn't matter in the NBA regular season because nobody plays it, probably except for Bones Hyland because Bones Hyland can do it all.
Pretty much, basically.
But I definitely think the Bucks can get all the way to the finals again where they're going to rematch against the Phoenix Suns.
That's not a bad opinion here. But so for teams that have underperformed this year, who do you have?
Oh, God. The Los Angeles Lakers have been the most disappointing team in the history of anything, let alone the NBA, let alone the NFL or whatever. The most disappointing team in the history of history. You have 4, count it, 4 top 75 players of all time on that list. Davis, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has been a shell of himself. He got into a claim with the media because he was like, oh, I don't like being called Russell Westbrook. Well, make some freaking shots, and then you won't be called Russell Westbrook anymore. Carmelo Anthony is a shell of himself. He's like almost a dinosaur at this point.
98 years old.
LeBron James, he's been one of the leading scorers in this league, but this is on him. He constructed this roster. I know I'm going a little bit Skip Bayless right now and blaming LeBron, but he put this roster together. Because Magic Johnson came out and said earlier this week they could have had DeMar DeRozan and maybe Buddy Hield. DeMar DeRozan's going to lead the Bulls to the playoffs. Buddy Hield was wasting his career in Sacramento. So you could have had DeMar DeRozan, a Buddy Hield, and kept Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and not gotten Russell Westbrook. And going into their 79th game, they're 31-47. They're not going to make the play-in. It's the most underachieving team I've ever seen.
Well, wait till you see in 3 years when they still haven't made a draft pick and haven't signed any big free agents because they have no money. They're going to be even worse than that.
Here.
But I have the New York.
It's the Brooklyn Nets.
Brooklyn Nets, whatever. What are you doing if you're Kyrie Irving? Like you keep missing games at home because you're not vaccinated, and I don't want to get political, but get vaccinated. Like Kyrie's he's always missing games for some dumb reason. He's always making just bad points. He says that the earth is flat.
So you just don't like Kyrie Irving?
I just don't like Kyrie Irving. I don't think he's that good. He's gonna miss a series in the playoffs for some dumb reason. I'm calling it right now. It's gonna be some he's done a lot of good in the community. All right, I want to give him that. He's helped out a lot of people, but. What is he doing? He's gonna miss a series in the playoffs for some dumb reason, and they're gonna lose because of poor point guard play.
And remember what Vegas had as the two teams that they thought the highest odds before the season to make the NBA Finals. It was the Lakers and it was the Nets. And again, star power doesn't win in the NBA anymore. It just doesn't. You cannot get a bunch of all-stars together. You need a system. Look at the teams with the systems, especially in the Western Conference. The Warriors. Great system. Grizzlies getting back to the grit and grind, great system. And then Monty Williams, Phoenix Suns. They all have systems. They've all been fantastic.
Or you can just get the ball to Bones Hyland. I mean, that's
or get the ball to Bones Hyland, not Nikola Jokic, who could be the MVP for a second time. But
should be the MVP. But what are you gonna do?
So who is going to be the MVP then? If it's not, is it going to be Bones Hyland too?
I'm afraid not. His teammate Nikola Jokic, he's just so good at everything, and he doesn't look that athletic. He's just weirdly fantastic at everything. So yeah, he's got the MVP.
He's one of the most unassuming players you'd ever see. He gives you kind of like a Larry Bird vibe to where it's you don't think this guy can play, but then he's hanging 40 and 15 on you. Right,
and in all seriousness, I love Bones Hyland, whatever, I met him, it's cool. If they didn't have Jokic, they'd be fighting with the Spurs for the play-in game.
Aaron Gordon would probably be their best player. But also MVP, I think you got to give it to Joel Embiid because there's been some voter fatigue in my opinion. You don't want to give it to Giannis again. You don't want to give it to Jokic again in my opinion. Joel Embiid, he's never won an MVP. He's got a rejuvenized roster around James Harden and himself. They have the potential to make a deep playoff run. Joel Embiid also leading scorer in the NBA. But again, it should be Devin Booker. But he's not going to get a look in. He might not even make all first team NBA at this point.
Really?
But just because people just have a problem with Devin Booker. But that's going to wrap it up for the NBA block, but we're going to be right back for the college hoops block where I believe Bryson Burns and Colby Cook are going to make me eat some crow. So stick around. We're now making our way to the college hardwood back with our analysts Colby Cook and Bryson Burns. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Lay it on me.
North Carolina's going to lose to Marquette. Then they're going to lose to Baylor. Then they're going to rack up 4 losses in a row in the NCAA tournament because Hubert Davis sucks. Ah! Where's Wake? Steve Forbes, Danny Manning.
Ending the season with a loss.
Your organization is garbage. Go home.
The one thing I want to say is you doubted both of us regarding St. Peter's.
You're darn right I did.
But you never bet against someone that has proven you wrong once. And what happened? St. Peter's proved the whole world wrong once again. First team to be 15 seed or lower to make the Elite Eight, and they proved you wrong while Wake was going home after losing in the NIT, the National Invitational Tournament.
The not-in tournament. Hey-o.
Okay, so NCAA tournament wrap-up. You mentioned Carolina getting all the way to the title game, losing to Kansas, 72-69.
Yeah, but that wasn't the title game. Who cares?
It was the title game.
That's going to go down on Wikipedia as the title game, but that's not the title game, and everybody
But as you're
knows
mentioning, UNC defeating the Duke Blue Devils, sending Coach K off his home floor, and then into retirement. What was your feeling as a Carolina fan after that game?
Just seeing Coach K and Mickey very sullen on the back of a golf cart, just blazing through the back concourse of the New Orleans Superdome.
Got you right there.
It did, right in the heartstrings. Meanwhile, because I just want to point out, Roy Williams retires, kisses the court, last game at Duke, wins, by the way, his last game against the arch nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Kisses the court, doesn't say a word, calls a press conference on April Fool's Day. I'm done. I'm out. Okay, cool. Krzyzewski plans a year-long escapade culminating in the biggest, most superfluous masquerade ball I have ever seen in my life. The quote-unquote brotherhood included, 90-some former players when Carolina regularly draws about 100 to a Duke game without even a pageantry ball to go with it. And then he loses twice.
Twice.
To
Carolina.
Go home. You washed up old fool. Go home.
Bryson Mertens, thoughts on the tournament?
Well, that honestly, I thought Duke was going to win that game as well because Duke had already blasted them the first game of the season, and then UNC barely beat them in the second game of the regular season. And I just thought UNC had a great game. They kind of caught Duke offhand, but I got to hand it to UNC. They sent Coach K packing.
That's what it do, baby. The power of Brady Manic.
Yeah, and it was impressive, but I know we already talked a little bit about them, but that St. Peter's run that they made is probably going to go down as one of the greatest, probably the greatest so far, Cinderella runs ever.
It's the greatest. The UMBC game over Virginia was nice, but that was a 20-point victory. Mm-hmm. St. Peter's made it to the Elite Eight. St. Peter's, I'll mind you, also has one of the lowest athletic budgets in Division I basketball. Lowest. And Shaheem Holloway did that.
Now he's going to Seton Hall. But again, I think that UMBC game that you mentioned a few years ago, that's probably the greatest upset, but I think the greatest run is St. Peter's. Again, lowest seed ever to make the Elite Eight. They ran through Kentucky. They beat Purdue, which I thought they had no shot on earth to beat, as it is well documented on this show. But, St. Peter's has just got to tip your hat to them. But also all their top 3 scorers are now entering the transfer portal.
They're all going to Seton Hall. We know where they're going.
Probably. But speaking of the transfer portal, this is what college basketball has become. It's become a year-round thing now with the transfer portal and the NBA draft as well. So big name transfers. Bryson, I'm going to go to you first. Who's your big transfer?
I have to go with Nigel Pack. He was first team Big 12 all season. He was third in the conference when it came to points per game with 17.4 and also led the team. He was basically one of the big reasons why Kansas State was competitive in a lot of games. And now he's leaving a sub-500 Kansas State team, and whoever gets him is going to have a huge addition to their team. He's just a phenomenal offensive threat overall, and I think that so far in the transfer portal, I think he's the best player. May not necessarily be in the ultimate grand scheme of things, but as of right now, probably the best player.
I got to go kind of off the beaten path here. I got to go with Ferdoz Amack. Look, this will be his third school. Right now he's at Utah Valley. They're in the WAC. This will be his third school. But the man is averaging a double-double. He's averaging a double-double. That's insane. He's being recruited by Arkansas, Gonzaga, Texas Tech, Washington, Houston, Iowa, Arizona, Texas. He's going to get his pick of the belle of the ball. So, this will be his third school. Yeah, he plays in the WAC. This kid is for real. For real.
But it's the WAC. Pack played in the Big 12 where they were going up against great teams basically every game. They were playing Texas, they were playing Kansas, and even though they fell short a lot of times, they were still playing that great competition. So wherever Pack goes, he's not going to be facing opponents that are that much better than what he's used to. Whereas with your pick, he played in the WAC, which is probably one of the lowest college basketball conferences in Division I. So that's going to be a big step for him. And I think Pack's statistics, especially within the context of playing the Big 12, is just much more impressive overall.
I mean, I don't know, man. Amac, he's a big guy, but he can stretch the floor, hit threes at a pretty good clip. I mean, look, the stretch fours and like the fives that can hit threes, that's what teams are looking for. That's Brady Manick, man. That's Mondo Baycott. Like, that's what coaches are looking for. And, I mean, you know, Drew Timme just said he's going to the draft. Okay, you replace him with Amac, a big who can shoot. Mark Few's golden.
And Mark Few might need it. I mean, we all know Chet Holmgren was going to go with Drew Timme declaring as well. There goes your front court for Gonzaga. And Gonzaga, another underperforming year as well. You lose in the Sweet 16 to a team that you definitely should have beaten in Arkansas. And a lot of odds makers, speaking of Arkansas, think that they could be the #1 team preseason next season. So looking forward to next year, who do you guys have, you know, that preseason #1? It's basically a toss-up.
See, Arkansas is a very good team. They've got a lot of good returners. Everybody's hopping on the must bus. Look, I get it. He has a stellar recruiting class. But everybody's sleeping on Mick Cronin. The man's a year removed from the Final Four. You got to figure Jaime Jaquez Jr.'s coming back. You got to figure Juzane's coming back. You got to figure Campbell's coming back. And then you have 2 recruits that are probably going to be in their starting 5 in the top 15 in the ESPN Top 100 in Amari Bailey and Aiden Bona. I mean, like, come on. Like, they're a year removed from a Final Four as an 11 seed.
And also, and they made the Sweet 16 this year as well. So, you know, they have that pedigree to go far in March.
I think that's a decent pick, but in my opinion, I'm of the opinion that you should always pick the reigning champion to be the #1 team overall, every single year to be the #1 team going into next season. But there's a caveat with that because Kansas is basically has the potential to have a ton of huge consequences basically just shoved right through their door because the NCAA has done a ton of investigations into them, so I don't think they'll be the #1. Who I think is going to be the #1 is UNC. Now, a lot of this is with the assumption that Armando Baycott and Caleb Love, the top 2 point scorers, do come back. They can come back. They do have another year of eligibility. They may go to the NBA draft, but they would probably be drafted in the 2nd round. So I think they'll both return. And so you have some great players who were part of a team that had a lot of momentum. They had the momentum in the tournament. And in my opinion, if you have some really good momentum in the NCAA tournament, that usually translates well into the next season overall.
I mean, look, this is going to be Hubert's first complete recruiting class, and it's a good one. It is. It is. And I would totally agree with you, especially as a diehard Carolina fan, how much I would want that. However, that is purely contingent on Caleb and Mondo coming back, and I think that Armando has, quite frankly, played himself into at least a 2nd-round pick. So with that being said, that kind of retools your whole roster. I mean, if Hubert's able to maybe go out in the portal and get another big man like he did with Manick this year, sure. It's just another Manick Monday, right? They couldn't cut the nets down, but they got close. But, I mean, you know, as a Carolina fan, I would die to see it, Bryson. I really would. But I think this national title run has put Baycott and Love out of reach. I would have said, yeah, if they lost, you know, in the round of 32 to Baylor, sure. But their draft stock has shot up so high, I feel like both of those guys could go in the 2nd round. Do you test the waters for a couple $1 million? Maybe?
Here's the thing, though, is going back to UCLA, I feel like if there was going to be the year where they were going to win it all, or at least be ranked #1, this past season was going to be that year because they had the momentum from that Final Four appearance that they had, and they couldn't convert on it. They couldn't even win the Pac-12 championship, for crying out loud. And so
Oregon State, baby.
Yeah. So if you cannot win the Pac-12 championship, and if you disappoint in terms of expectations this year, I don't see how they should deserve to be #1 going into next season.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. You know, I did have that earful within the first minute, which I probably deserved, but it's been a pleasure, guys. Stick around. Thanks for watching another edition of One-on-One Sports.
Make sure you hit our socials at One-on-One Sports on Twitter and Instagram, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube.
And remember, we are 3 weeks away, April 28th, from our NFL Draft Show. It's going to be live here on YouTube for the entire first round, all 4 hours of it. Should be a good one. But from all of us here at One-on-One Sports, whose side are you on? Good talk. toss here. Oh.